Stop wasting time scrolling through endless clickbait, social media, and emails trying to keep up with the news. Instead, listen to all the news you need in just 10 minutes.
Welcome to The Newsworthy.
The Newsworthy podcast makes it faster, easier, and more enjoyable to get unbiased news on the go.
It helps us navigate the news without feeling overwhelmed.
Even when my time is limited.
So much detail and information in 10 minutes.
Listen now by searching The Newsworthy in your podcast app or go to thenewsworthy.com.
911, what's the nature of your emergency?
Welcome back to the Tactical Living Podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Welton, joined by Sergeant Welton. How are you?
I'm good.
You know, I was just thinking about you have never had your promotional ceremony.
They just actually sent out an email. I don't know the date or anything, but they're going to be having one in the next few months sometime.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's been how long? Over a year?
It's a year and a half.
Interesting. I think it's really interesting when we stop and think about how many times in our lives we have had an epiphany of okay, I need to change something. And it got me thinking about a quote that I once read, and it said something along the lines of the people who you are closest to are the ones that hold you back the most. And of course, you needed to delve into the explanation, and what they meant was those people are the ones that are going to say oh no, you look fine, you don't need to lose weight, no, you don't need to go and get that PhD. And they're the ones that are comfortable with you being comfortable. And it comes from a good place. However, I feel like it's important for us to understand that that good place of comfort is probably not our limit.
Yeah, I think, and it's funny, the first thing that comes to mind for me is talking to my mom. My mom will actively seek out people who agree with her and find people who are going to reaffirm her beliefs in what she's wanting to understand, instead of actually talking to the people who might disagree or it might give a contrary explanation as to why.
I've been told my entire life, I remember trying to date in high school, which wasn't very much, but people I might have been interested in, I was told more than once, you're too good for me. And I've had my dad tell me, you need to dumb down the way that you talk to people. And these are things I'm sharing because it's so restrictive, right? And it's so unfaithful to myself because I don't want to talk dumb to people, or I don't want to have to try to think about how I'm articulating my thoughts when I'm just naturally speaking. And I'm never condescending or anything like that. I am very much on your team, right? I'm the person who you're going to take your foot and put it on my hand so I can lift you up on top of that ladder. And it's very interesting because there are times in our life where we have these realizations. And for me, something that I have come to found is I am a very confident person. And a lot of that comes with people feeling intimidated around me. And the downfall to that for me has always been that people don't want to point out mistakes that I make to me. And I've had to have really deep conversations with people about well, why didn't you tell me that I did that wrong? I don't want to be perfect, but I always want to improve something. And I don't want to be wrong. I don't want to be wrong in the sense of I'm right and you're wrong. I don't want to be wrong in that I'm doing something incorrectly when I know that I could be improving on something. And you know more than anybody that my word of life is expansion. I'm always growing and learning. And so it doesn't sit right with me ever if I'm doing something incorrectly. But more importantly, if I'm doing something incorrectly and then somebody isn't pointing it out to me. And I think that for a lot of people, you might be super successful in areas of your life and you might be super competent, and yet that could be hiding something underneath the surface. And sometimes there's a big difference between coping and then truly healing. And a lot of that has to do with kind of defining these high functioning struggles that some of us might be facing.
Yeah, I think it's important to, analyze everything within life in general. Like Ashley said, her drive is expansion and wanting to learn more, and to, if a mistake is made, is to recognize the mistake and not to be right or wrong. It's just, okay, well, let me address that now and see how I can change my outlook on it.
Yeah, and here's the thing. When you're a first responder, I feel like sometimes for some people, that uniform is actually hiding a lot of things that could be undiagnosed. And, a lot of first responders, it's no secret, are going to be struggling with things like mental health issues, but then they appear perfectly fine and refined and polished on the outside. And they utilize that uniform almost like a cloak. And, the truth is that discipline and structure and that professionalism, it makes you super effective when you're out there on the field and on the streets, but it could be concealing other things that I know from, messages and discussions that I have on a daily basis, that a lot of people are struggling with, things like anxiety, depression, trauma, burnout, things with their family, things with admin, like name something.
Yeah, I see this, like I have some of the guys that I'm specifically supervising is, you can go to them and talk to them about, hey, you're lacking in this area, or you're struggling, you're doing something that's not necessarily right, and let's see how we can change it. And those are actually the people, because then you'll start getting 1,000 excuses as to why they're doing it. And this is what I tell them. It's like, I'm not looking for an excuse. I'm just telling you what policy says, and you screwed up. And it's recognizing that for yourself. Like, I know if the lieutenant comes to me and says, hey, you messed this up, I go, absolutely I did. I will correct it and it won't happen again.
Because I think I know who you're talking about. So a strategy for an individual like that, because I'm assuming this is somebody who's like a repetitious offender. And something like that could be, this is what the policy says, and yet you keep challenging me. How come? Yeah.
And that's definitely the approach I started to take on that. And with this specific individual, he's so hard-headed and he thinks he knows more than everybody else. And I'm like, it's tough.
I think that a lot of first responders mask a lot of their symptoms for a lot of different reasons. But one of them is that we have this cultural pressure to appear unshakable when you're a first responder. And we also have the stigma, of course, of career repercussions, or even losing trust, or not wanting to speak up. But a lot of that is just negative self-talk, and it's not actually the reality, because I think that for most departments, especially in the United States, we're getting far past the whole stigma of mental health when it comes to being a first responder.
Yeah, I think we have done an amazing job in the first responder realm of starting to take care of our people more, and to change that dynamic, and to start addressing the CPTSD issues and the trauma related issues that we respond to on a regular basis, recognizing it's a problem and finding ways to combat that. And it's important to recognize that, but I think with every solution, there's going to be new hurdles that are thrown our way, and it's being able to adapt and change as that time goes along, to be able to be manipulatable or moldable to be able to change that dynamic.
I think too that structure and discipline can help to be able to maintain that sort of outward stability, allowing everybody else to see what you want them to see. And routines almost become this crutch instead of a lifeline. And eventually, whether you think so or not, this is going to take a toll on your body. I believe that I probably would have landed myself in the hospital by now if I still worked for the same demon that I had worked for. And I didn't realize that at the time. Like, I was just taking it and taking it and taking it. And my body was giving me all the signs. My body was literally screaming at me. And yet I suppressed it all. And it wasn't until it all went away that I realized, like, wow, this was so detrimental to my mental health and my physical health.
Yeah, and it's hard when you're in that situation to be able to recognize it, especially if you're dealing with it on a daily basis, because it's just becoming your new normal, and it shouldn't be that way. Like, I've heard people say this before, especially in the first responder realm, is cops hate the situation they're in. They hate change and the situation that they're in. And that's where it's really looking at it. And it's true. They go hand in hand, and it's being able to be adaptable and start changing that mindset of, okay, well, times are changing. Let's change with it.
Self-deception is so dangerous. And we've heard the two little words, and you've said them too, I'm fine. That's a form of self-deception when we're not being honest with and we don't necessarily always have to be honest with the person that's asking. However, it's very important to make sure that we're not being dishonest with ourselves and always using the I'm fine as a band-aid on everything that might be going wrong in our lives. And I think too, the other part of this conversation is to be that person. You were gently mentioning people that you can always go to and talk to at the department. I think that it's important for people in your inner circle to know if you're that person that they can come to in confidence. I can think of a handful of people that, Clint, you could go to in confidence at your department that, they wouldn't try to locker room talk you after the conversation. And it's so important to have that.
Yeah, it's super important to have those people that you can talk to where they're not going to use this information on the back end to try sabotaging you or to put your own personal goings on out to the world. Being able to have those support systems in place with people like and trust is very important.
I hope you've gotten some value out of today's episode. If you have, do us a favor, drop a review, subscribe down below, and as always, know that I'm sending you a long, tight hug from my home to yours.